Good evening. Today, the Pope was accused of helping to cover up the appalling child abuse of up to 200 deaf children in Wisconsin while working in his previous post as Cardinal in the Vatican. The future Pope was told about the abuse allegations in the 1990s, according to church files released today as part of a US lawsuit. No action was taken against the abuser, Father Murphy, who had written to the future pontiff pleading for leniency. The Vatican has denied a cover-up, but Pope Benedict XVI is now under more pressure than ever before. Here's Peter Marshall.
Close to home and far away, the Catholic Church proudly boasts of its universality. This is a scandal that now hits it everywhere. And for the first time, the Pope himself stands accused of a cover-up.
The Pope in his office had this case. He had bishops in Wisconsin virtually begging him in his office to take this man out of the priesthood. And they couldn't do it. I mean, if you have a priest thousands of miles away molesting children, and that bishop says, we've got to get him out of ministry because he is so dangerous, and the Vatican says, no, we're not going to do that. For whatever reason, there's something terribly wrong with an institution like that.
The case is that of a priest who worked at a school for deaf children in Milwaukee from the 1950s until 1974. He raped and assaulted over 200 boys. His victims are still asking why the then Cardinal Ratzinger, who's now Pope Benedict, turned away. One of the victims was Arthur Baczynski. He spent 30 years trying to raise the alarm. His daughter blames Ratzinger.
He was the one who handled the sex abuse cases. So I think he should be accountable because he did nothing.
The priest, Father Lawrence Murphy, was quietly moved from the school but continued working freely with children in Wisconsin until his death 24 years later. What's so damaging about this case for the Pope is the paper trail, letters in the 1990s from Milwaukee's then Archbishop, Rembert Weakland, to Cardinal Ratzinger, who ran the Vatican office adjudicating whether priests should be defrocked. On July the 17th, 1996, the Archbishop tells the Cardinal,
I am writing to inform you of two situations in which two priests of this archdiocese have been accused of solicitation of a penitent so as to commit a sin against the sixth commandment of the Decalogue.
It seems the Cardinal ignored the letter, for 8 months later, on March the 10th, 1997, Archbishop Weakland wrote to a second Vatican official saying,
I wrote to His Eminence Joseph Cardinal Ratzinger. My hope was that His Eminence would grant special norms for a penal process in this case. So far, however, I have received no response.
At this point, Cardinal Bertone, on Pope Benedict's right here, today he's the Vatican Secretary of State, intervened, initiating a secret canonical trial of Father Murphy. But in January 1998, this was suddenly stopped when Murphy himself wrote to Cardinal Ratzinger.
I'm 72 years of age, Your Eminence, and am in poor health. I simply want to live out the time that I have left in the dignity of my priesthood. I ask your kind assistance in this matter.
What I think is most extraordinary about this Milwaukee case is the way in which the Vatican simply ignored the wishes of an archbishop. Archbishop Rembert Weakland, a man of great esteem, held in great esteem in many parts of the church. It was sort of arrogance on their part, it seems to me, that not to take him seriously when he told them that a priest had to be removed from the priesthood, and they just ignored it. And he was the man, in a sense, the Cardinal Ratzinger, as he was then, was the man responsible for this.
This is becoming a papal Watergate, with Pope Benedict in the role of President Nixon. It's not the crime, the sex abuse practiced by some priests, it's the cover-up. And every week, it seems, that gets closer to the man the Church holds is God's representative on earth. Bad enough, the perpetrators using the authority of the Church to commit their crimes, but just as shocking, the allegation the man who's now Pope deployed pontifical secrecy to bury the truth. Only last week, the Pope issued a letter to Irish Catholics in which he reprimanded Ireland's bishops for failing to show leadership over sex abuse cases. Now it's his ultimate leadership in question.
In a sense, if popes can have egg on their faces, I would have thought that he had egg on his face. I mean, it has come back and to haunt him, exactly what he accused the Irish of. He could almost now be accused of the same thing.
Failing in his duty.
Failing in his duty.
Today in Rome, a group from Milwaukee tried to take their questions for the Pope direct to the Vatican. They were briefly detained by the police.
to say, as they have been, that Cardinal Ratzinger courageously went after sex offender priests when he was running the congregation, which was his responsibility to do that, you can see from this case that is absolutely not true, and he needs to explain to these victims.
There's a medieval aphorism which runs, "The Pope is judged by no one." It may be that this Pope finds that for millions of Catholics that no longer applies.